All right, everybody. It's a little afternoon, and like I said, we have some strict schedules today, so I want to get everything done before 1 o'clock. So I'll go ahead and start the meeting. This is the webinar for the DEI Assistive Technology and Accessibility demonstration. We will be doing a short presentation, and then we'll be showing you some of the technology that we've been working on. So quick introductions. My name is Allison Chanel. I'm the District Conservation Manager at Mecklenburg Soil and Water Conservation District. I've been in that position a little over a year now, but I've been with the Soil and Water District for almost 3 years. So DEI is something new to me, but it's very important, and I thought this would be a great chance to share it with you guys. But it wouldn't be possible without some of our help from our very wonderful volunteers. So I'll turn it over to them. Amy, would you like to introduce yourself and your team?
Sure, thank you. I'm Amy Chanel, and I'm a Related Services Coordinator for Cabarrus County Schools. I'm also a speech pathologist and the Accessibility and Educational Materials Coordinator. And with me today, I have Katie Jones, Occupational Therapist, and Jenny Ma, Physical Therapist.
Yeah, welcome everybody. I'm going to share my screen right now, and we'll just jump right into that presentation. Go ahead and feel free to put any questions in the chat, or if you have any issues viewing or hearing us. Just so everybody knows, we are recording for all of those who could not meet live. So if you do ask a question out loud, you will be recorded, just so everybody knows. And with that being said, let's go ahead and start this presentation. So, yeah, let's jump right into it. So during this next hour, we'll be discussing what exactly is DEI, and then get a little bit more into detail, and we'll be talking about what is accessibility in relation to DEI. What are the barriers to access, and how does it relate to, specifically for me, Mecklenburg Soil and Water, but to your own district or your own activities? And then we will end this with a presentation of how to use the tools for specific types of disabilities and handicaps. So just to start this off, I think this is a great quote by Brian Greenberg, and it kind of sums up what DEI actually is. And DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion, provide a much broader perspective for problem solving and developing creative solutions for competitive advantage and greater success. DEI creates and fosters an open learning environment for the betterment of your employees, which ultimately produces quality products and services for your customers. Now, when we're talking about conservation, we don't necessarily have customers. We do have cooperators, we have producers, students, and stakeholders. So don't let that word customers, hang you up anyway. They have multiple labels, and we can make sure that we're being accessible to everybody. And with that being said, what exactly is accessibility in relation to DEI? And this is another great quote, but accessibility is the practice of making information, activities, and or environments sensible, meaningful, and usable for as many people as possible. And I think that last part really speaks for itself, as many people as possible, right? And that's the goal of this presentation. So with that being said, I kind of want to turn that over to our specialists. So I'll let Amy take the reins on this one and talk about some barriers to access and what solutions can come from that.
Okay, thank you. And so for today's time, we're going to talk a little bit about barriers that will include any of the following. People who are bilingual, multilingual, visual differences, hearing impairments, speech impediments, as well as some physical limitations.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add, I'm sure everybody has seen one or many of these barriers during their time in their districts. For me specifically, in this past year, I've seen 3 of these barriers just in our environmental education outreach activities. So multi-languages, physical limitations, and hearing have all been something that we've had to adapt our practices to so that we can make our activities more accessible to the community. So just keep those barriers in mind as we progress through this PowerPoint. And I'll go ahead and take this slide because I've actually had a lot of hands-on experience dealing with how to make our reference materials and some of our activities accessible to people who may not speak English as a first language, or maybe they have multiple dialects, or they speak more than one language, sometimes even 3 languages. So I think it's very imperative to have these materials available to any attendees in various languages. You can even consider maybe the top 3 in your district. If you don't have that many, at least have it in another language. And it will kind of reflect your community and the learner's diversity. So I have an example here, and let me just exit. So when we're talking about multi-languages, I think some of us only speak English, which is understandable, but we're lucky to live in this day and age with technology that allows us to instantly translate materials. So I just want to show you how easy that is. Yesterday, if everybody can see my screen, I was able to translate this almost instantaneously through Google. This is our Urban Cost Share Program interest form. Whenever we have a homeowner or a stakeholder who's interested in one of our cost share programs, they're able to access this Google form from our website, and they can fill it out with their specific information. And it's a really easy way for them to get in touch with us and to share some details about what the issue is. Basically, I was able to use a mixture of Google Translate, and Google has this built in. I just found this out. It's really cool. They have add-ons, which are free. So you can actually add on an AI, which I chose Slide Informed Translato, and it will actually translate from a handful of different languages. So English to Spanish to Mandarin, whatever you need for your specific district, it will do almost instantly. It took me about 30 seconds to translate just this paragraph here. So it's a really easy, free way to be able to do that and to make it more accessible to your community. Now, let me go back to the PowerPoint here. When we're talking about our district activities like our contracts, it's incredibly important to understand the legalities of it. And when I say that, we actually ran into this issue a couple months ago. You cannot offer a contract written in English to a non-English speaking person as part of the contracting process. It's almost unlawful because they need to understand all the details of the contract and what exactly they're entering into. So we had to hire an outside translator to be able to go in and translate all the written documents into this person's native language, which was Spanish, for them to be able to participate in our cost share programs. So going through that process, I really learned a lot personally, but it is so important to make sure that you at least have something on hand that you can give to them, because trying to find a translator and getting that process done was not only costly, but it took up a lot of time. The other really important thing to remember is there are interpreters and there are translators. An interpreter will be able to communicate with the stakeholder verbally, and they're able to take one language and interpret into another if it's spoken word. If it's written word, that would fall under the purview of a translator. So making sure that you know that difference when you're going into that type of process is incredibly important. And just make sure that you have any brochures or handouts that you use frequently, that you have those ready to go if you are going into a community that maybe their first language isn't English. Next slide. Okay, Amy, do you want to take it from here?
Sure, thank you. And so we have, it's really important that, you know, at any of these opportunities that you all have, that we have access to low vision or no vision opportunities. So we might have people that come in with that require glasses or enlarged print, or they may be blind. And so it's critical to provide any of the following. So visual descriptions. When you're working with some of the materials that you have, if they're tactile, you're going to be able to describe in detail about the texture, the shapes, and of course, if you have any tactile or tangible items to be able to help somebody have a better understanding of what you're talking about. I'm thinking of some of the educational opportunities that you're doing, being able to put them in their hands so that they can have something that's relatable. For any materials that you provide, like your brochures and things like that, you want to make sure that you have large print visual materials or something that's on a computer screen that can be enlarged for people who may have low vision. Additionally, if you have anybody who's blind, you can use Braille stickers. And you might say, well, how easy is it to get Braille stickers? They can be purchased online. Additionally, the American Printing House for the Blind will help with some other resources and supports to be able to make your materials more accessible for students or attendees that are low or no vision.
Perfect. So before we move on, I have an example of what these Braille stickers look like. So they're really easy to peel off and use. Here we have the keyboard alphabet. This is just a quick example, but if you needed something that was either bigger or something that would apply more to what you're teaching for your environmental education outreach program, you can always find those online and they're relatively cheap. So with that being said, let's continue the PowerPoint. All right, hearing.
Okay, great. And when you're working with anybody who has a hearing impairment, it's really important to be able to have seating that's really closer to the speaker. Anybody that has a hearing impairment will benefit from being able to observe the face of the speaker so that they could make that eye contact, read their lips, or watch their facial expressions. Also, it helps cut down on some of the acoustic environmental sounds that are going on in a room. For instance, I'm in a room right now that has really poor acoustics, so the sounds are reverberating off of all the walls, and it would be not a great room for someone with a hearing impairment to be with me right now. But you know, a room that has carpeting helps lessen some of that extra sound that's going to be coming off the walls. But again, you can eliminate a lot of that by just having optimal seating for them. If you're doing any visual demonstrations, such as videos, anything that comes from YouTube and whatnot, you don't want to attach your videos as a link. You actually need to embed them in your PowerPoint because that's the only way that it will actually pick up the captions or the closed captioning. So any opportunity that you can provide closed captioning would be great. Also making sure that you have handouts where they can follow along visually in case they cannot hear the auditory presentation, or maybe the information is being presented a little fast and they need a little more time to process, and that would help them to be able to comprehend what you're sharing. If it's a larger group and maybe you're a soft speaker, I am not a soft speaker, but if you can use a microphone to project your voice. Again, like I said, you want to watch out for some of the acoustics in the room, and then keeping in mind that you want to have a sign language interpreter, video tele-relay, and this, you know, that's for some of us who are a little older, that's kind of the TTY, but now it has video options. Or of course, we have apps now that are available for access to be able to simply, you know, show some signing and some interpretation of your voicing.
Yes, and I actually have a fantastic example of that. And thank you to our very generous donors who were able to actually purchase an iPad for us and the app that goes along with this. But what I'm about to demonstrate is the Hand Talk app, which just found out about it. Amazing. It's able to do a live sign language interpretation for you. So you speak directly into the app and there is a digital person who's able to sign for you. So I'm going to show you exactly how it works. So basically all you do, if you can see him, there's an orange button down in this corner and that's for the microphone. So I'll go ahead and give him a phrase. Hello and welcome to our meeting. We will begin shortly. So if you can see what he's doing here, it has the text running across the top, and he's able to sign while I'm talking. So if you do have someone who is deaf or hard of hearing, you can actually purchase a case just like this, and it's able to pop up. It has these little kickstands on the back, and they can watch him sign while you are talking. The best thing about this app, though, is that it will also take a picture of written material and sign. It will give you the sign translation for it. And you're also able to change it from American Sign Language to Spanish language sign language as well. So you're able to accommodate more than one community in one app. This is free, which is amazing. There is a paid version of the app, but it is relatively cheap and a great tool for us to use for accessibility. So if you're interested or have any questions about it, I'd be happy to, send you a video, send you a link to the app, and we can talk more about it. But this is just an amazing tool for you to have in your arsenal. So with that being said, let's get back to the PowerPoint, and then we can open it up to any questions someone might have at this point.
Allison, thanks so much for that app. I really find that that's really important on many levels because it really speaks to multimodality learners. So it has the visual aspect of it and the written word. So that's really, really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
So,
next, oh,
oh,
go ahead.
Amy, so sorry. Before we do that, does anybody have any questions before we go into speech? Because I know this is a big topic. If you do, feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll be happy to address it. But sorry, Amy, you can go ahead and
Oh, no,
get
you're
back.
fine. Thanks. Okay, and then for the next area, in working with speech impaired individuals, just whenever you're going out to any of your presentations or any of your meetings, having pen and paper available. If someone is unable to verbally communicate or get their point across to you because maybe they have slurry or what we call dysarthric speech, it would be important for them to have access to pen and paper or a whiteboard, something that they could just write down, what they're trying to share with you if the communication is lost. Also, there are picture symbol boards that can be customized. Some of those can be free as well. But the picture symbol boards, for some of your educational activities that can have basic, like I want the car, I need a shaker, I need, or I need to go to the bathroom if they need to have, some support from the teacher who's present as well. You may also encounter what we call speech transliterators, someone trained who can understand and interpret someone who has unclear speech and repeat it for them clearly. That's somewhat like an interpreter, except they're specially trained to identify difficult speech patterns. It's also important, I love this one, listening attentively to the speaker at all times. And just know that it's always okay to ask to repeat if needed. Someone who's trying to get their message across to you would much rather you go ahead and ask them to repeat it. And sometimes I'll say things like, I'm so sorry, my ears aren't working right today. So could you repeat that for me? Or I'm so sorry, the noise in the room. That way it's not put back on the speaker who's really trying hard to get their message across. Um, Along with the picture symbol boards that I just mentioned, some people may come in with their own communication board or augmentative communication device. And that would be something somewhat like that iPad or an electronic device that may speak for them. It may take, if you haven't heard them before, it may take a minute or two for you to tune your ears in to understand the speech patterns coming through on an augmentative device. But really a great opportunity for someone to be able to connect and communicate. Again, you would want to just be patient with that person because it could take a few minutes for them to type in or select the picture symbols that will speak on their behalf. And then again, just being, like I said, very patient and giving them time to respond.
Perfect. So I actually have an example of what these picture boards look like. And I know Lingraphica, the company, makes them in both English and Spanish. So I gave both examples here. These are really easy to print out and relatively inexpensive, like we said. you may find when you're working for the district that, maybe this seems like a lot. But I just want to remind everybody, you don't have to run the gambit on this kind of stuff. Specifically tailor your DEI initiative or your program to what you need. So if this seems like a lot, scale it back. Maybe put 3 or 4 or 5 different symbols that you use a lot in your presentations and have that on hand just in case you do have a student or an adult who does have trouble communicating, and you have that to give to them, and then it will make the presentation go smoother and it makes you look more prepared. So making sure that we have that equality and access to our programs and our reference materials, that's the key there.
Yeah, and Allison, I love that you shared that they're low cost or free. Some of these companies like Lingraphica, these specifically are free. There are a lot of other resources that are free, and you can see that some are in Spanish that have the wording underneath, and some in English, and there are other opportunities as well. There are many different companies, and if that's something that you all are interested in, we can get the resources to Allison for you.
All right, physical limitations. Amy, do you want to take this?
I think, Katie, yeah.
Yeah, so I know you guys already had introduced me in the beginning, but I'm Katie. I'm an occupational therapist, so I'm just going to jump on this topic of physical limitations. So it's important to understand that those limitations can be short term, so something like a broken arm, broken leg, or they can be more long term, like missing or malformed extremities. They can impact things from getting around a building, as well as just basic access to activities and different resources. So since it's such a broad category and there is such a span to how it can impact the different parts of, a variety of activities, there's a couple different things you can look at just at the base. So making sure that a space is free of clutter and easy to access and get around from a variety of different ways. Have activities available to be used by people who are standing or in a seated position, which may be a traditional chair, a wheelchair, things like that. And then providing tools for people to access from a variety of different ways. So if they're unable to grip or to reach different items for tactile use, so just providing a lot of different ways. It is a very broad category. So these are just some of those base things that you can do. But if you guys have more questions or if you want more specific examples for specific topics, just feel free to ask as we're here as well.
Thank you. So now let's talk about practical applications in our setting, and this is my domain, so I'll take it from here. Let's talk about community meetings. I know you either love them or you hate them, but it's always good to be prepared when you do have a community meeting. Having that iPad that has the multilingual access to forms, it doesn't even have to be an iPad. You can have printed materials. You can have it on your laptop. I found that having those already printed out and bringing them to our contracting meetings was so helpful, and it made the meeting run much smoother. Again, it makes you look really prepared, and you look like you're giving thought into being accessible. So if you are doing contracting, make sure that you either have an interpreter with you or a translator who's able to translate the written materials ahead of time. If you need communication boards, this would probably fall under one of your environmental education outreach events. If you do need them, make sure you print them out ahead of time. And then having access to materials that support individuals with physical limitations. And we will actually be talking about that on the next slide with our Enviroscape demonstrations and how we've made it more accessible and using different tools. We had to get pretty creative, so I'm excited to show you guys what we did here. So I think a lot of you are pretty familiar with what the Enviroscape is, how it works, and how it looks. This is not our particular Enviroscape, but this is the watershed model that looks very familiar to what we have. This is from Knox Lincoln Soil and Water Conservation District. You have the different regions. You have the industrial plant, agriculture, the construction zone, the roads, and then obviously the water body and where all the storm runoff drains into. So you have all the basic parts there that's reminiscent of what we use. And I will actually show you the different tools that we have. So if you can bear with me for a second, I'm going to be changing my screen back and forth to show you. But as we mentioned, having something that you're able to cater towards people who are maybe seated low or in a wheelchair or have some kind of physical limitation, having an extra table might be something that you consider having at your education outreach activities. So if you can see me, we actually have this handicap accessible table. It rolls up to the person, it's angled, and you're able to bring it exactly like up to them. That way they feel like they're included, they're taking a part in the activity, and they can be able to handle tools. A good accessory for a table like this would be something like this. It's actually called a Dycem, D-Y-C-E-M. It's this sticky rubber plate. You're able to just slap it on the table and it can hold different tools. And you can place things on the table for whoever is sitting here. So with that being said, let's talk about some other tools that we have. And just bear with me for a second. Can everybody see? Perfect. All right. So when we're talking about the Enviroscape, we have those different regions like I talked about. We have the construction zone. So we have our little flattener here. Perfect. So if you are, let's say, a student who is fully abled, they're able to use dexterity in their hands, they're able to pick something up, play with it, move it, that's perfect. But what if you have a student who is unable to do that? Maybe they lack that dexterity or they're unable to handle small little pieces like this. Well, we actually purchased this magnetic wand. It has a longer handle, easier to grasp. It's not heavy in any way, but children are now able to interact with the truck. If you can see it moving, let's see. So you kind of have to play with it just a little bit, but there you go. So it's attracted to the magnet on the bottom here. And so they actually don't have to touch the truck or any of the construction materials itself. Another example, we have a little pickup truck here. There we go. We're able to move the truck without actually touching it. Perfect for people who may have those dexterity issues, like I said. Something else. This is one of our students' favorite little things is the animals. They love to pick these up and they love to look at them and move them around. Again, we have our wands here, able to attract the animals without having to pick up the individual piece. They can just use the magnets, get a better look, and put it back down, right? These come in multiple different colors and they come in packs on Amazon, relatively easy to get and fairly cheap. So just something to consider when you're thinking about making your Enviroscape more accessible to your students. The other thing, I think this is everybody's favorite part, at the end of the Enviroscape demonstration, we have the students make it rain. So we have those big bulky bottles. Students love it, but if they are smaller, they usually have to have both hands grasp around the bottle and they have to spray using the 2 fingers, right? Well, that can be a little hard for somebody who has limitations in their movement or ability to use their hands or maybe the dexterity in their fingers. So what do? We have a smaller bottle. This is a good place to start. If you have smaller students, if you just have students that are unable to hold the bigger bottles, this is a better alternative. They don't necessarily have to use 2 hands. They can just use 1. But let's say we have a student who has more limitations than that. What do? How about a smaller bottle? How about a bigger trigger? That way they're not using their individual fingers. They can use their hand to go around and they can still spray the bottle. Let's say this is still too much. That's okay. What do we have here? We have an even smaller bottle. You don't need to use your fingers at all. You can actually put it on the table and with a flat palm, use it to spray the water. Pairs perfectly with your Dycem here. You just place it. That way the student's not having to hold the bottle at all. It works for any of the sizes as well. So, and you can even put it up here. We have an adaptable shaker. I know that for the pollution, we either use glitter or sprinkles or something like that. And those are really tiny and you kind of have to pinch and grasp it. But if you want to make it more accessible, pick something with a handle that is more round and easy to handle so they can loop their fingers through it, go like this. If they have a table just like this, place it on the dicem, it doesn't go anywhere. Perfect, and they feel included. Now, let's say all of this is great. What if, for instance, I have a student with cerebral palsy? They're unable to grasp these tinier objects. I don't want them to feel left out. I want them to be included in this Enviroscape demonstration. What do? Well, me and the consultants had to get a little bit creative, but we did come up with something. If you have a student with a lot of limitations in their movement, this is something that you can consider. So I'll move this back down and show you. We actually have an adapted wand. So it has a grasp handle, and you're able to pair it with something like this glove that has Velcro on it. The student can easily slip it on and grasp the wand. And it attaches to the glove directly. There is no weight placed on the actual hand. They're not having to hold it up or anything. And it really easy to slip on and off. And when they're done, all you have to do is just help them take it off like this, and you're good to go. You can put it over to the side. One other consideration that you might be thinking of, especially if you have something like an adult environmental education outreach event, something like a grabber that has dexterity. If you have students who need to reach something, if you have an adult that needs to reach something, this is just a consideration. Obviously, none of this is required. This is all stuff that you can pick and choose from to cater to your DEI plan. I just want to emphasize that it's important to take notes when you're out on these education events. Talk to your community, ask them what they need, and then take your plan from there. So if you're thinking this is a lot, I can't do all of this at once, it's okay. Like, we can have a starting point. Maybe it's just downsizing your bottles just a little bit to make it more accessible. Maybe it's just having the dicem there on the table so that somebody with limited dexterity or able to move can feel more included. Another big hurdle that you might be thinking, show me the money, right? I know that's something that we have to deal with all the time. Quick overview. I mean, all of these tools that we made accessible came out under $100. So maybe you don't have $100 in your budget. Perfectly understandable. We have a bunch of things going on in our districts. But if you just wanted to maybe adapt the bottles or adapt the magnets and the wands, you're looking at something less than $15. So I think that we can find $15 in the budget, right? To make sure that our students feel like they're more included in our demonstrations. I think that's reasonable. If you are interested in something like the iPad, I know that new iPads are extremely expensive. You can always check on Amazon Refurbish. They have great deals, and they make sure that all of the equipment works. I've also gone to these retail bin stores and found iPads and tablets there. They don't necessarily have to be Apple, as long as they can support the app that you're trying to download, and they're easy to handle. That is okay. Make sure you test it before you buy it, though. That's always the key. But even with all that said, providing the ease of access to all our participants is ultimately priceless. So just think about that when you're making your budgets for your education and outreach, or just your DEI plan or accessibility plan at the beginning of the year. So just ending this meeting, I think, on a good note, I thought this quote by Emily Ladeau was great. So accessibility isn't actually accessible if the person requesting it is made to feel like they should be apologetic for doing so. And that kind of reflects on our need to be prepared just in case we have a student or an adult come up to us who needs those accommodations. It shouldn't feel like a burden. It should just be, hey, you know what? I got that reference material right here for you. And then they feel included. So just keeping that in mind as we end this presentation. big thank you to Jenny Ma, Katie Jones, and Amy Chanel for helping us with this presentation and making everything adaptable and helping me with my own knowledge about DEI and accessibility. We have great plans in Mecklenburg for making our district activities and our DEI plan just more accessible in the future. I know that we just started a couple months ago, but I would love to see it grow into something bigger. And part of that is community. And I'm trying to start this DEI task force. Right now we're in area 8. So communicating with the other districts in our area is probably the first step. If anybody is interested in sharing these materials, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll get you in touch with who you need to talk to, or we can talk about maybe loaning some things out and testing them in your own district. Our DEI initiative is called Conservation is for Everyone, and we will be doing a series of presentations and outreach events under that initiative. So, be on the look in your email for more presentations in the future. But if this is something that you're interested in, or you have any questions after this meeting, especially those who could not attend live, again, my name is Allison Chanel. So I'm in Mecklenburg. Just go ahead and shoot me an email and I'll make sure that we get the information to you that you need. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions before we end? If not, I have some frequently asked questions that we can run through. All right, I will go ahead and start us off just in case. So anybody can feel free to answer. But what are some ways to make a student feel more included without singling them out? Do you guys have any advice?
Sure. I think the biggest thing is if you can be prepared or anticipate for different case scenarios. I think that then will make it seem more natural and not draw attention to any need that arises. So just trying to think ahead of time as to what can occur, what needs might need to be met.
Perfect. Sometimes it's a little helpful too if you know a particular teacher who does come to a lot of your outreach events, or the principal, to just call ahead and say, hey, I have some accessible technologies. Is this something that will be needed at this event? What do you think? Are there students who would need this? And they can usually give you that insight that maybe you don't have. So just thinking about that in advance is always helpful. Next question, where do I start? If we're talking about from a district perspective, I think making a plan is the first way to start. So what do you want your DEI plan to look like? Will it focus more on our contracting, or will it focus more on environmental outreach, or maybe just a mixture of both? It really comes down to, what is your main goal at the end of the day? Are you trying to go out to schools more? Or are you trying to communicate more with your community to garner some more contracts for your cost share programs? So understanding what your goals are is probably the first step. And then I thought the most helpful thing in my DEI journey has been actually just going out into the community and asking people what they need. There will be no better source than just going out and asking people, what are your needs? What can we do to help you? Is this helpful? Those are questions that I think are just invaluable in the end, right? Talking to people has taught me more than any research I've done on the internet. Not to say that going on the internet is helpful. I recommend the ADA website if you do have any questions, but no, asking people is a great first step. I don't know if Amy, Katie, or Jenny have anything else to add to that, but from an outside of a district perspective, but that's where I would personally start.
Yeah, I think one resource that I've kind of jumped into recently has been, I think you guys had talked about like AI a little bit earlier, but if there is a specific, child or a specific demonstration you're doing and you're wondering how can I make it accessible for X, like you reached out to a teacher and they said, we have a student that has this and we want to support them and they may need supports in this way, you can always put that into like an AI search, an AI system, and be like, hey, how would I make this activity accessible for someone who has fine motor weakness? Or how could I change this activity to be more accessible for someone who might be in a wheelchair or something like that, and just start there and see what it comes back with. You always have access to a ton of resources and a ton of people, but if it's just like a quick 1-2, kind of just researching it in the base there is always a good place to start too. I found that it's a good place to kind of get your information and then build off of that with your other resources and people too.
Yeah, perfect. Also, don't be afraid to share resources with each other. If you have a question, you know that another district in your area is doing something similar, feel free to make that connection, because in the end, helping each other is going to be so important. So, next question, I think that plays nicely into it. Are we able to share resources? And I think ultimately that is the goal. I would love to, with our DEI initiative and our task force, having that communal resource pot is going to be so important. Let's help each other out. If we have ideas and we have the means to do it, let's share. So if anybody is interested in anything that we showed today, either making it, borrowing it, purchasing it, feel free to reach out to me and I will point you in the right direction. So, just reach out. And the last question, if our budget is small, what can we do? I think we mentioned several very great options for people that are free. So, you don't have to spend an exorbitant amount of money on these DEI resources. Even just making something simple as the Velcro wand, I mean, that's a game changer. Having that free app, Hand Talk, I mean, that's also a great tool to have. Printing out those free resources, and I can send out a list if anybody's looking for them. And just going out and getting some ideas from the community, that's always priceless as well. So does anybody else have any good suggestions for anything either low budget or free that they can access?
I think if you're ever doing like anything at a school, talking to the teacher, like you said, ahead of time, and then also saying, do you have X, Y, and Z that I could use with my demonstration? Because a lot of times we have a lot of supports in the school system, and if we know to have them ready, then we can have them there for you to kind of utilize as well. So you don't have to go out and buy all the new materials if they're already there.
Perfect. And Amy, what was that website that people could get the Braille stickers from?
Through the American Printing House for the Blind. A lot of times they'll have it, or again, just like Katie shared, if it's at a school-based setting, a lot of those things will already, they'll have things that are accessible for you.
Great. And that the picture boards, that was from Ling Graphica, again, another free resource. So don't be afraid to go out and just check those things out, see if it fits with your DEI plan and your goals. With that being said, I don't see any other questions, so I appreciate everybody taking the time to attend live. If you could, if you are watching a recording of this, I also appreciate you taking the time to watch this as well. If you have any questions, again, my name is Allison Chanel. You can see my name on the video, but I'm over here in Mecklenburg, like I said. If you have any questions, reach out to me. Thank you so much, Amy, Jenny, and Katie, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to help present. And thank you, Brandy, for being my technical support. So I hope everybody learned something today, and I hope we can chat soon. So thank you again, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.